Rayman Origins Definitive Edition is something that's been on my mind for the past few years. After the release of Rayman Legends Definitive Edition, I figured that we might get a Rayman Origins version sometime soon, especially since Rayman Legends is often held in high regard as a very good Rayman game, as well as one of the best 2D platformers out there. But fast forward to 2026 and we have nothing like that. The only re-release that we have is Rayman 30th Anniversary, and as you guys already know, that game isn't really reviewing the best. But we're not really here to talk about that game. I kind of just wanted to sit down and kind of brainstorm my own ideas on what a possible Rayman Origins Definitive Edition could look like, especially since it's something that's not really talked about a whole lot online. Like, if you go on and look up Rayman Origins Definitive Edition, you're gonna see little to nobody bring this idea up. And the only thing I could find was this one like fanon wiki that would just throw some random ideas, which are good, but for some of them are a little bit far-fetched, I believe. And I'm also aware some people are just gonna say, why not just play back to Origins on Rayman Legends? And while that's a fine way to replay Origins, it's not the full game. Some levels were cut out, progressing through paintings is way less interesting than actually having a world map to go through, and I don't know. I'm just somebody that really prefers Rayman Origins over Legends, even though I love both, so I believe there could be some benefit to having a modern day release for Rayman Origins. I'm gonna split this into two sections. One is gonna be needs and the other is gonna be wants. The needs are essentially gonna be what I would expect to be in a remaster for Rayman Origins, whereas the wants are gonna be my own personal things that I want to see that are gonna be pretty far-fetched and probably would not happen, but I would still like to see if possible. And before we get straight into it, if you guys have any other suggestions for what could possibly be included for a game like this, make sure to leave it down in the comment section below, as I would like to read it and see if it was something I would agree with or not. Alright, so for our first need, I would say the first thing that they have to include would be an option to change the art style between Origins and Legends. Now, both art styles are beautiful, but I imagine for some people that grew up with Rayman Legends that they would prefer to have that art style instead, especially since it's been the art style that's just been used the most over the past like decade. So for the sake of consistency, I think there should be an option to have both, and I'd imagine it can't be too hard since Back to Origins already has a bunch of the assets from Rayman Origins in the newer art style. And while I know some people might say this might be too hard to do, I would say it shouldn't be, because I'm pretty sure I've seen some games be able to do this. If I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure the Halo Master Chief Collection has something similar to this. It could work a little bit different in that game, but I'd still imagine they could get something up and running for Rayman if they really wanted to. This one's a bit of an odd one, but I still think it's a need, and this one would be an option to change up the movement style between Origins and Legends. So for people that may not know and maybe have not played Rayman Origins in a while or at all, the movement in that game is a little bit different from Rayman Legends. One of the major differences that I can immediately call out is your momentum whenever you're doing a kick in the air. In Rayman Legends, if you're running, jumping, and doing a kick in the air, you're gonna carry forward all of your momentum. But in Origins, you actually lose a bit of your momentum, and it can make some jumps a little bit difficult if you're not prepared. Another small but noticeable change is that your punches do take a little bit longer to charge up, and while you don't really need to charge up your punches at any moment in this game, it's still something that I feel like I should mention for people that want to know. Moving on to our next need, I think this should be a simple thing that they are able to do, and that is to add more costumes for the characters. As most of you already know, the UbiArt games have a bunch of costumes for all of these characters, and I feel like it would be a bit of a missed opportunity to not add a couple more into Rayman Origins. And the thing is, they don't even have to make any new ones if they really don't have to. I would prefer if they do, but if they want to just bring the ones from Rayman Legends and Adventures and Mini, that's completely fine as well. So I feel like more costumes was a given, and nobody's really gonna argue about that. Alright, this is a big one, and I know some people might say this is more of a want than a need, but I think this should be included, and that is the option to have online co-op multiplayer. As most of you know, Rayman Origins is a 4-player game, but that was back when, couch co-op was kind of a normal thing to do, but it's 2026 and unfortunately couch co-op is just something that not too many people do nowadays. If you want to play a game with somebody, more than likely you're gonna have to play it through an online game. But given that Rayman Origins is a game that was heavily advertised to be a co-op game, and you can do a lot of things like hit each other or have somebody be a platform for you to jump off of, I believe there should be an option to at least have an online feature where you can play with other people. And they don't even have to get rid of the couch co-op like multiplayer thing if they don't want to. Like, I'd imagine if you have a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation, you can still do couch co-op with somebody if they're willing to do it, but in the cases that they can't and they really want to play the game with you, add an online feature so that's possible. This next one is something that is only on the PS Vita version for this game, and that is a ghost mode. The ghost mode was added to compensate for the PS Vita's lack of multiplayer, and the ghost mode kinda acts similar to the time trials in the game itself. But outside of time trials, there's never really been an option to really race each other. So having a ghost mode where you have to beat a certain person's time or even possibly your own friend's time would be a nice addition. This next one is something I completely forgot about because it's only in the Vita version again, and that is collectible relics. The relics are basically a hidden collectible in the game, and after you collect a certain amount, the game is going to reward you with a puzzle piece that's going to show off some of the character's backstory. And I think this would be a great addition because besides the teensies, there's no other thing that you can collect in the stage. And this could add a bit of replay value to the game in case you missed one. But following up on the relics, I do believe they should add more mosaic puzzles in the game. This game is called Rayman Origins, and yet in the other versions that are not the PS Vita version, we don't really get to know much about their past and their origins at all. So having more mosaic puzzles tell us more about Rayman, the teensies, the magician, and just all the other characters in the game would be really nice to have. As one major complaint that I've had with the UBR games is that the stories have always been pretty lacking to me. And speaking of story, we will discuss that when we get to the wants section, but we're not exactly there yet. And for the last thing that I say we should get in what I think we need for this version is touchscreen capabilities. Now of course, PlayStation and Xbox users can't really do much with this, but I imagine if you have a Switch or a Switch 2, you could get some usage out of it, especially since it was a thing on the PS Vita. But with that, that's basically all the things I would say we need in the game. All of them are pretty basic, but I'd say they make the most sense. Now we're gonna move into the things that I want in the game. And for these, a lot of people may not agree or just think I'm crazy for thinking that this would be in the game, but one can only hope, and they're all just little suggestions at the end of the day and not things that I would say we absolutely need. For my first want, and might be one that some people would disagree with, would be some more potential Murphy missions in this game. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and act like the Murphy missions were all that great in Rayman Legends, but it was some nice additional content to have with the game. And if this game were to exist and come out on the Nintendo Switch system, I imagine having Murphy missions would be really nice to pair with the touchscreen. Another want that I would like to see in this game is a potential music/art room. For Rayman's 30th anniversary, the social media team has been posting a lot of behind the scenes stuff and concept art for past games, and I'd figured why not go the whole 9 yards and just include a whole bunch of concept art and just official promotional art for Rayman Origins in the game itself. They could even take the paintings from Rayman Legends and just put them in this game and just put artwork over them. I know it seems a bit lazy, but why not? Just having a little something to look through while you're in the tree would be a nice addition for the game. Plus, Rayman Origins has some really fucking good music. Granted, the entire series does in my opinion, but I feel like the UBR games have some of my favorite video game music. So while you're in that art room, maybe you could have a little record player that allows you to select certain tracks from the series. Alright, I have 3 more wants, and they're probably gonna be the most almost ridiculous for the series, but who cares? For my third want, I think it could be possible to include Barbara in this game. Now, I was pretty on the fence about including this on the list since Rayman Legends feels like this is where they first met each other, but unless I'm missing some type of confirmation, I don't think it's ever implied that this was like their first time meeting. Yes, you do rescue her from the painting shortly after you start the game, but who's to really say that they could have possibly met each other and then after the events of Rayman Origins, she went off on her own, got captured, and then the events of Rayman Legends take place. And given that Barbara seems to be a mainstay in the series at this point, you could make the argument that she could have been in Rayman Origins, but if she were to not be included, then I could somewhat understand. Alright. This next one is gonna be my more outlandish one. It's probably gonna be the most outlandish one, even more than the next one, but I just want y'all to hear me out real quick before you judge. I believe they should add Rayman Jungle Run as side content. In case you've never played this game or don't even know what this game is, Rayman Jungle Run was an auto runner mobile game that was released back in the early 2010s. It released around a year after Rayman Origins came out, and just like a lot of mobile games back in the 2010s, they were simple, easy, and they were just something you would play for a few minutes and then put away. Now some might be asking why this, and I have 3 reasons as to why. My first reason being that auto runner video games have been around way before mobile gaming started to pick up steam, so what would be the big deal about having this on the side for you to play after you're done with the main game? My second reason would be for preservation reasons. Because this game came out back in the early 2010s, as you would imagine in 2026, it's not going to be as readily available as you would like it to be. This game is not available at all on modern phones, and while you can still get it on PC, the PC version is only available through Ubisoft Connect, and I heard that version was very bad apparently. And while thankfully this game is backed up on the Internet Archive and there's even a fan-made HD remaster for this game, setting it up isn't the hardest, but it's also not the easiest, and I imagine for some people they don't want to go through all that trouble just to play a mobile game. Not only that, but this game had some updates for some new DLC added that I just had no idea about. And I tried to get the DLC working, but I couldn't for some reason, meaning I just can't play those levels at all. So potentially having this game preserved on modern platforms would be a huge win. Last but not least, my final want for this game, if it ever happened, and probably the thing that wouldn't happen if I'm being completely honest, would be a reimagined / redone story. Usually when a game gets remastered or remade or whatever, I usually do not want them to touch the story. But in the case of Rayman Origins, it's a bit different. One, because there's not much of a story to begin with if we're being completely honest. Like there is a story, but it's so poorly explained that like after 10-15 minutes of playing, I've kind of already forgotten what the point of the story was. But 2, it's pretty clear that there was supposed to be more to this game than what we were given, but either to the time constraints or budget, it had to be cut down pretty severely. From early trailers that we saw for E3 to this game originally being an episodic game before being changed to a normal retail release, to even a script that was left in the game's beta, which would have greatly expanded on the magician's motives and his backstory, to even just the name itself being called Rayman Origins. If we're being completely honest, this game was supposed to be a lot more than what it was. Especially when you look at the PS Vita version for this game and you remember that that version had those 2 cutscenes for Rayman and Glowbox. It just feels like the team wanted to do more, and with what little time they had between the initial release and the Vita release, they decided to put that in there. So if they were to possibly remaster this game, why not give it an actual proper story this time? The main reason why I advocate for this, and if you've noticed I've been using Sonic Generations as an example throughout the video, is because that game did something similar. If you had to point out one flaw for Sonic Generations, one of the biggest ones would be the story, mostly because there was no story. It was honestly just something that they drew together real quick, so not only could they have Sonic meet his past self, but also give him a reason to explore past locations. Meanwhile, in the remaster, it's kind of the same thing, if I'm being completely honest, and a lot of the changes was just more dialogue between characters and not anything that actually impacted the story, but it did open up the idea that you could remaster a game and tweak its story enough if it's warranted. And I feel like for Rayman Origins, that could be done. You can keep the plot with the magician and all that stuff. And even though this game is considered a sequel and not a prequel, I feel like you could include maybe a few more levels that kind of give a bit more story to Rayman and all of his friends and how he met them. Heck, I don't know, you can include some type of like time travel mechanic or whatever, where we get to go to the past and see how Rayman was created, how he met Globox and all that other stuff. I don't know. That's just a dumb idea that I just made up on the spot, but I don't know. You could just have something that could show off more of Rayman's origins and give the title of the game a bit more purpose and meaning. And considering that there was a Rayman game that was apparently cancelled a few years back, and one of the working titles was called like The Story of Rayman, I'm pretty sure what it was called, as well as the rumors of a potential Rayman Legends remake being in the works, a Rayman game that goes over his backstory and how he was created would be perfect. Assuming that this supposed Rayman Legends remake isn't gonna tell his story, then a game like this would be perfect. But of course, at the end of the day, something like this can possibly never happen, and it's just a small suggestion from me. But with that, that's gonna be the end of the video. I hope you guys did enjoy it, as this has been a video that's been on my mind for like the past 2.5, 3 years now, and I finally decided to get to making it instead of just holding off on it. But not only that, but Rayman Origins is probably still one of my favorite games of all time. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the channel before, maybe I have, maybe I hadn't, but it was like one of the first video games that I ever saw somebody play, and I just instantly fell in love with the game, with the character, with the series and all that. And so it's just so unfortunate that a game this good is not available on modern platforms. And while a basic port would be nice, as the original game is pretty good on its own, considering they gave Legends a definitive edition for the Switch, I figured I would try to throw my hat in the ring and try and make my own definitive edition for Origins. If any of you guys have any other suggestions that I just did not think about, make sure to leave them in the comment section below, as well as tell me what you guys want to see from me, because I've been drumming up more ideas for the channel and I'm trying to see if I can get into YouTube a little bit more. So drop ideas if you have them, but with that, I will see y'all next time.